Wait, did you actually do it?
Yes.
Oh, shit.
Oh, we're going to have to start each podcast
Once
like this
again,
now. It's just like, are we on?
Our
It's going?
professional intro has been completely destroyed. It's Tacto's fault. Well, everyone, welcome. This is the BentoComics SketchJam. We're back with a new agenda today. We're going to be talking about story. We had a big discussion right before we launched our software, which you caught the tail end of. We were talking about our theme song again, and the idea that we would like one, and the fact that we don't have one, and how we would go about getting one. And we think that that would make, something that would... Or, no, we don't steal. But then we got, off onto the 1980s and music and all this kind of stuff. And so anyway, now we're just kind of all singing Toto in our head, and it's not. Yeah, final countdown. I think that's enough material to have a whole nother podcast on. So there are actually several pretty talented musicians hanging around the table. And I think maybe next time or at some time in the future, we'll be talking about, music. I think, for a podcast like this, a theme song is nice. It's a few seconds of music, but it makes a big impact if you're trying to become known amongst your users or some other. But at any rate, today we thought we'd talk about story. What you're seeing up on the screen right now is a product called Scrivner. I'm going to go through that. My journey through learning the software and playing around with it. It's a lot of fun. And I think it's something that a lot of people can use to help their writing. And then we're going to move onward to the thumbnailing process. Myung has just got finished with a whole new batch, a whole new chapter of thumbnails, which she's sent around. So we're going to take a look at those. So, of course, as we know, writing comics, creating comics is a multi-phased process. There's a lot of work to be done before you actually start drawing or inking or painting. Which is the end game, right? So we're starting kind of at the beginning today, talking about story. Okay, so around the table today we have Myung Kim. Myung, why don't you say hello and tell us what you're up to today?
Hello. So as Dee mentioned, I've been working on my thumbnails. So I have a whole batch of thumbnail scripts that we're going to go over. And this is for my current webcomic, Simon Sue's.
Yeah, Simon Sue's, which you can find on mangamagazine.net, even though they actually changed their name.
No, they're now Inkspot, and people, there are some...
Blazers.
Ink Blazers, yeah.
Are they disassociating themselves from manga, is it?
Well, they felt like they had so many varieties of stories that they wanted to encompass all of the content, and Ink Blazers was the best sort of all-inclusive thing.
It wasn't like a judgment call on what kind of...
Oh, no.
That's good. Yeah. Inclusiveness is good. Okay. So we'll put your link at the comments of the YouTube channel. So who else have we got? Dan. Dan Hess. Dan is with us today. Dan, what are you up to today?
Today I'm watching hockey.
Nice. Hockey's good. Let's try and keep it comics related, Dan.
Sorry, I got nothing else really going on other than my usual workload of wishcomic.com and stuff like that. Trying to figure out what I'm doing for our next anthology.
Yeah. So Dan does a weekly strip at Wish Comic, and he makes out like it's no big deal, but boy, that thing has gone out every week from when? How many years now?
Almost 6, I think.
Yeah, every single week. So continuity.
Yeah, I'm almost at 1,000 strips.
I've been drawing.
Why are you so old? Okay.
I've been here since 1909.
With my Cintiq drawing Wish in Flash.
We didn't have Cintiqs back then. We had pencils and paper.
Tacto, your old person is excellent.
Yes.
Let me introduce you, Tacto. She's also with us today. So, Tacto, what's up with you today?
Huh.
Wow, articulate,
Question.
nice.
That's a question I ask myself every day. So,
dude, you just showed us what you're working on. Start over.
Today I'm working on actually on a freelance project for an illustration for a website that's going to take care of a sleep study for children. So it's a sort of a child book style illustration, and I'm learning color as I go as well. But I'm really interested in the topic of our SketchJam today because, boy, storytelling and stories, that's hard. And Scrivener actually makes it easier somehow.
Damn good.
Because you can
tell us about it.
You can shuffle those little post-its on this corkboard really well. So, Dee, tell us all about it.
Yeah. So, I stumbled across this at some point in the past when I was working on my graphic novel, because I recognized that I needed a little help with things like, plot. Because, I had a webcomic for 5 or 6 years. And I was perfectly content to have this thing go forward. I did a page a week, religiously. And it didn't actually have a plot. Yeah, it's a webcomic, and I was having fun. I just drew whatever I wanted. I had a sort of a loose structure of a story, but there was no third act and all this kind of Oedipal stuff, and I didn't care, so it wasn't really something that I cared about plotting out. But as I've said before, this SketchJam is sort of organized around the fact that we're doing an anthology, our yearly BentoComics anthology. And for this year, we wanted to all try, sort of stretch ourselves and try something a little bit different. And so I thought, what the hell? Why don't I try and do an anthology story that has a plot? Because plots are good. And I love writing, but I just have never approached it in, a very structured way. And I felt like I needed a little bit of help. So I went wandering around looking for tools that the first thing that I do is consult the internet and find a cool app. There's always an app for that, right? Whatever you need. So, and I ran across Scrivner, which has actually been around for some time. I don't know anything about this guy or what he does for a living, et cetera, et cetera. He writes pretty good software. It's some good support on this. It's an endorsement because I think the product is excellent, but I don't get a kickback or anything. I'm just saying this is good stuff. And you could try it for 30 days.
For Mac and PC?
They have it for Mac and PC. Yeah. And I think that...
I think they're working on an iPad version as well.
Yeah. I mean, he's had it for a while and he keeps expanding it. So let's see what they got. It does too. It started out as a Mac-only situation, but it has been since ported to Windows. And I don't know. We'll put the website URL. I'm a Mac user, so I don't care about you people. Oh, sorry. Did I say that aloud? There is a Windows version, right?
We won't get into that battle.
Yeah, no. So, but he has a 30-day trial, and it's not like one of those asshole 30-day trials where you boot it up and then the clock stops ticking whether or not you ever use it again. I hate that. It's like, what the hell? Why so stingy? So he actually is a 30-day trial. You have to use it for 30 days. It don't have to be consecutive.
Oh, really? So you could come back a year later and...
Yeah, exactly. And you'd be on day 2, which I think is because I mean, you know how it is when you get a new software. When you take a running start at your new software, and you rarely do you get like a couple of days to sit down and just figure something out. You kind of fiddle around with it, play with it, and stuff like that. It's like so I think that's really good. And then if you want to buy it, it's like $50. Oh my God, $45 US. Jesus, give this guy some money. He's worked his ass off on this. And then there's really good documentation, and he's done a lot of videos. And plus he has this really charming accent on his videos. So there's a variety of...
Where is he from?
Geez, I couldn't tell you. I just, in my mind now, it's gotten so confused. I'm just like, Europe? Or maybe Australia. I don't know. But, it's well documented, these little tricks. And this is kind of like Photoshop in some ways. You get it out of the box and, you figure it out how it works. It's got a few quirks like all, software does. But once you figure out how things work, and, you get the mind feel of the creator, you can go forward. And you don't have to use all the features, and that's fine. But if you really like to fiddle with, little toggles and, look at this, customizing your colors and screen space and all, you could just go nuts because it's very customizable.
All right.
So this comes packaged with a series of templates, one of which is the comics template, right? The comics template was done by this guy, this very fierce-looking individual who is a writer of comics.
I write comics.
Yeah, exactly. He looks very tough, doesn't he? But you can tell he's a writer because
Stark lighting. With the
check
stark
out
lighting.
this is his tutorial on how to use his templates. I'm just going to keep. Yeah, this guy is obviously a writer. Seriously, I'm just.
Core blimey.
Yeah. So it's well documented. I would say that somebody
In
who's not a
conclusion.
writer would not have, he's a very, very exacting sort of guy. So he set up these templates, and then he just did it because he's like a guy who likes this kind of thing. Once again, I don't know this guy. He's probably like totally famous, and now I'm like revealed myself as some sort of jerk. But at any rate, if you're the kind of person who likes to consult the manual before you go forth, this is certainly well documented. So he set up these templates, yeah? And one of which is the comics template, and that's what I've been using for my story. So let me just show you what the desktop looks like here.
Ooh.
Nice. So what I like about this, split screen. This is very nice. And this is not a tutorial on how to use Scrivner. This is just like a little overview of what's going on with D today. Oh, I didn't introduce myself. My name is D. Dupuy. Hi.
That was lovely.
Yeah, nice. Just to show you what the dealio is. I like the nice clean interface. There's like crap loads of things that you can configure in here. I think the way that most of us start is with an outline. Yes? Maybe?
Yes.
So writing an outline, and this is very rough. I don't know how, this guy who developed this template was a writer, and he has to write for an artist to interpret. Yeah, as far as I know, he can't draw at all. So he's half of some team. So his plots, or his writing is going to necessarily be a lot different from my writing because I'm the one who draws my own comics. And I tend to think of these things as in a much more visual fashion, right? So I will have a visual imprint of some scene or some other, and then I have a tendency to go write it, which is why the plot also, many times takes a back seat. But this will allow you to try and structure these sort of visual images. If you are a person that works in a sort of visual way, it has this.
So did you name it outline, or is that a set
I named it
object?
outline.
Oh, okay.
I'm just going to show you these here. I'm expanding this is the stuff in the binder, okay? So what I brought into Scrivener was an outline that I just created in Word or some other, not Word, like text or whatever, yeah? I thought I would write like a different first draft, and then I abandoned that idea because I didn't need it. So what I got started on immediately was the script, okay? So let me just show you how this works. So what I did was, and this is, the guy recommends this technique, this is how he does it, you take these little incidences from your outline and you load them onto these index cards, okay? And this allows you to split up the specific movements of your story, the sort of arc of your story, into whatever unit you like, yeah? So he was splitting them up into pages. And that seems to work okay for me. But you can also split it up into just, quote unquote, scenes, right? And
or
maybe
like
you don't know.
Or important points of your
Yeah. So, you could even do something like keyframing, right? Yeah. So you hit the important points. And he had an interesting way to do it. He was talking about the fact that he might create one scene and then realize that maybe it was a fight or some other, it's going to take a couple more pages. He would just load in a couple more blank index cards, right? So I think that's a very interesting way to structure that. So, and as Tacto said, your corkboard is very amazing because, sorry, you're going to get used to moving around here. Sorry, I don't mean to make the software look stupid because it's not. That's just me. That's all me. you can configure these things any way you want. So you have to remember, what makes it more convenient for you. So what I did was take each one of these plot points, yes, and put it into this kind of index card. They're very rough. I hope you're not reading it because it's just totally rough, right? But it seems to have gotten almost everything.
Can you move them around anywhere? Or
Can.
are they sorted?
Can. I'm trying to figure out how to do that right now. Oh my God, I'm solving it up. Wait a minute.
Well, be struggling here.
Okay.
Not only can you move them around, but you can also very easily change the size of those little cards, which means that you can fit very, very quickly much more of them on the corkboard, and so it's much easier to see the overall view.
Thank you.
There you go.
Can you color code them as well?
Indeed. So
you have like those little tabs on the right corner, top right corner.
It's eminently configurable. I mean, it's really tried to make it, and it's remarkable as well because I'm using it for comics, obviously, which has a very specific sort of format. But he's got like crap loads of templates in this thing. It's a serious like 30 or something. I don't even, it's for any kind of book you wanted to write or reports or screenplays or anything. So, and he really has tried to make it extensible enough so that you can customize it to the way you like to write. Yeah. And, everybody writes differently. So Tacto is exactly right. And here are all of my this makes up the whole from the beginning one to the very end, right?
So you were dividing your outline up by pages, and that's what each of these cards represent?
Yeah, it worked out that way. So I guess what I'm not showing you is my first pass. This is actually my second pass. So as you recall, I sent an email to somebody complaining the fact that my story ended up being 26 pages long, which was ridiculous. So what I did for my first pass was just put down my rough ideas onto these index cards. My second pass, which I have indicated by pink over here, yeah, which you can change, of course, right? I created these little levels. They came with the template, but I didn't agree with what he had done, so I did my
Need
own.
Much work.
Need much work is a red one. Yeah, need much work. Wow, much work.
I like the done hooray.
Yeah, done is a question mark.
Done hooray.
Done hooray.
So close. So close. Done hooray.
So the first pass are these pale pink ones. These are actually the medium pink ones, yeah, which means second pass. So you didn't see the first pass. And that I found that I put all the outline on the index cards, yeah, and then I could go through and like, oh, that's not going to take a whole page, so I can move this action onto here. It's very difficult, and I think we'll get into that when Myung starts showing us her thumbnails, breaking down the action so that it fits on a page, because there's certain, structural kind of things that you get into when you think about how many panels will fit on a page, what the emphasis panel needs to be, et cetera, right? So the utility, so you can see here, these are the ones that are I have not gone through and made the second pass on. So this is where I stopped right here. But the nice thing about this is that you don't lock yourself into some sort of stone. If I had written this whole scene and then I figured out I didn't need the scene, it would be hard for me to throw away this scene, right? And then I would have a couple of awesome dialogue with some cool characters that I really like, and I wouldn't want to throw it away, and it wouldn't contribute to the plot of the story. It would move the action forward, and it would handicap the story. So if I decide I want to throw this away when it's just an idea, an index card, no problem. Or maybe I can decide that it would be better up here. Yeah, you can easily do this. So having this ability to shuffle this stuff around and move it and restructure it and make it, tailor it is very good. It's very good. It's very nice, very free.
So I noticed that on the left panel, navigation panel, there's characters in the middle.
Indeed. So
what is that?
This allows you, this is another really amazing function of Scrivner. It's not only a writing tool, but it allows you to organize your materials in a very, I feel, a very intuitive and useful way. Because usually especially when you're drawing, you have a lot of references and stuff that, research that you've done. You have, this is just showing the corkboard view. You have, settings that you've done research on. You have an idea what your character's like, et cetera, et cetera. And, I had like a million different, images. Like I'd see something on Tumblr and I'd go, wow, that's a really cool pair of boots. I want my character to wear a pair of boots kind of like that, except with laces. And then I download this image and then I would forget I had it and then that idea would be lost. So now I can put all of these things in here. Yes? So let me just show you how this research works. Folders, very easy to complete. Organize your material however you like. Characters. These are just a bunch of images that I downloaded from the internet. That I'll use as references for this character. The setting, right? You can put in PDFs. You just drag and drop these things off the internet, or you can open your folder and put them in. It's fine. Okay, this is a bunch of pictures that, I can't show Nyla's daughter here. She actually lives right next to the temple, so, that I got. And this is research that I did. So all these pictures of this type of monk, the altar, et cetera, et cetera. My snickety snakes. Very nice. And it's there to hand. And this is something that I love as well. Maybe I should take the snickety snakes if you're squeamish. Look at that. Oh, I'm going to write the scene about the altar. Yeah? I have a picture of an altar right here. I can't tell you how freeing that is as a comic artist, right? Because, you don't, you have a lot of this stuff in your imagination, but you may want to say, the way the light glints off the, statue, or you may want to emphasize, the way the incense curls up, or, something like that. And having these kind of references and having these sorts of, actual, ideas there in front of you, I think it really makes your writing a lot richer,
So here you're using a template to organize everything?
His template mainly had to do with the way the comic strip was organized. Okay, so he set up a series of, I'm going to fumble on this a little bit because I set it all up and then I promptly moved on to other things that were more fun. Got it. Yeah.
Well, never mind. I was
Good
just
job.
wondering if
Boom. So if you want to create a new, okay, very easy. New, yeah. Actually, this is a new one right here. So this shows you, he's got a little macro script in here which auto numbers your pages for it if you want, yeah, which is very nice. But so for example, you don't care about that, et cetera, et cetera. This is your basic thing. So let me just take you through this real quick and hopefully I won't flub it. So you start out with panel 1. You're like, okay, panel 1. Here's some description.
Blah, 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 blah.
Blah, 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 blah. All right. First off, I'm writing to my corkboard. Boom. And I've got my little corkboard over here. Yeah? Okay, that's helping me out. I'm going to, this is the way he recommends to do it, and I think that's a good idea. Make it really big so you can see everything. Okay, I'm writing this scene. Yeah? And then here's another description paragraph. Boom. And then here's some more description paragraph. Okay, now I'm going to have some dialogue. Character. Automatically formatted in all caps, which is the approved way of doing it, right? And then when I hit return, dialogue.
Nice.
And I've got, little features on that you can turn off and on, like, spelling. And, if you don't like that, that's fine. You turn it off. It's got auto capitalize on all this stuff.
So is character in all caps like kind of a reserved word, and so it knows to format it in screenwriter type setting?
That's a good question. It's all based on your actions. So because I hit return, it knew automatically to go to the character. So what he's done is develop this template based on his writing flow and the structure of the typical comic script, right? Let me just show you this. If you look down here, you can see the way that this template has been set up. So these are the fields that would be part of this little macro that he's created. Yeah. So each one of these things is accessed by either a tab or a return If you stay within the structure that he's created, then all you have to use is tab and return to access this. So it will automatically go to the next one. So if I hit return again, I am now here in general text again. Okay, but if I hit return twice, I am now informing the software that I want the next panel. Yeah, and you can select it like this. Right? And here we are back in description.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah, more description. Character. Oh, it's got autocomplete. Hello. Boom, 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 boom. So here's the thing. I had done a second pass on my index cards. Okay, and then I'd firmed it up pretty well. And then I'm like, okay, before I start going down this page, doing it in the structure like this, because this structure seems like really structured. Yeah, maybe I don't want this much structure. It's going to like harsh my ideas, man. Maybe I'll do this draft up here. But then once I got a feel for this, you have to get a feel for it. Geez, give it 10 minutes to learn the way the guys set it up. I mean, it works pretty well. Once you get a feel for it, it's very free. I mean, it's very flowing. So you don't feel like you're fighting the software for structure and all this kind of stuff. So it works really well. And you just keep going, right? And then he's even written in stuff like this, like, I don't really use parentheticals or whatever. But you can also do this as well. Panel 3. And then you just keep going until eventually you have a story that has a structure with some awesome dialogue. I love it. It's really cool. And you know what? Here's the thing. It's really fun. It's fun because it's like this little toy you get to play with, And, sitting down in front of a blank slate, I mean, that, especially when it's like writing because it's hard and it takes a long time. And, and there's a lot of things that you're trying to keep in your mind at one time, that you're juggling around in your head. It's, a little bit stressful, maybe a little bit hard. This makes it a lot more fun. And everything is down here, being really explicit, right? So I like it.
I have a question, not more on the software per se, but on your writing process. So did you end up writing linearly kind of panel by panel, or did you not know how many panels you were going to have per page and then split up like a pre-written set of dialogue?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question because I think that people approach that split in some sort of, very individualistic way. I think for me, and I don't really have a process because I have no idea what I'm doing, is after I've gotten the second pass on the index cards, it had sort of firmed up in my mind how many panels are probably going to be on that page. And then it's just a matter of going, well, one action, one panel, right? And then I think what it's going to need after this is, obviously I'm going to have to go back and actually write. The dialogue I wrote as, without being clever, right? So all of these characters have different personalities, have different speech patterns, have different ways they like to swear, et cetera, et cetera. That I haven't done yet on the first pass, and I'm not worried about it. The characters just say what they need to say to move the plot forward, right? So on the second pass, I can go back and refine that. So I think having these versions, you just slowly chip away at it until you've got something that's finished. And that's the kind of way that I like to do things. So to sum up, you had this organic, non-linear process in the beginning with these index cards. And then you slowly move away from organizing your ideas, firming up the rough structure of a page, kind of getting an idea of how many panels it's going to take. And then you go to the script part, and then you can firm it up even more until you finally got something that comes out the other end.
Nice.
Yeah, to me it was, I don't know, kind of a game changer to me. I felt like, some people don't need this kind of structure. But, I like structure, and I like cool new software, and this really did it for me.
Can you change the font on the index card? Because it reminds me of my mom's old recipe.
Yes, it's different, Yeah. I haven't, this doesn't bug me, but, oh, man, everything is just eminently customizable. You can't see this because it's on a different screen. I'm on the Cintiq here, but if you come up and take a look at the preferences screen, everything. You don't like the font, change it. You don't like the size, change it. It's got all these formatting tools, etc. This is nice. So something that I was doing I was thinking I could go back and create a system by which I decide which panel on the page is like the money panel, like the big panel, and then I would highlight it in a certain color. Yes?
Uh-huh.
Which you can easily do. Or parts that I was like, nah, that's a stupid idea. I think I need to rewrite that. So I'm just going to highlight that and then come back to it later. This is what I'm talking about, taking these passes over and over again. So it's like you don't have to, I'm going to finish page 4 and it's going to be beautiful and et cetera, and then I will move thusly on to page 5, because I don't think that visually oriented people work like that. And, I certainly don't. And this is what I like. So it's very flexible and very free. Obviously 7 panels is a lot. So I'm like, well, maybe, I'm going to have to go in there and combine a panel or cut a panel or some other. But it's very easy to do. So there you go. I mean, this is not a comprehensive overview, and I hope, you get used to it. I mean, how long have I been playing with this? Not long. Just kind of this week at work. Oops, did I say that out loud? So I've only been concentrating on this. This I've set up. It's taken me maybe a couple days. I've kind of fallen into it, and now I'm getting to the point where I discover more features, or and you just add them on when you need them. It's not a big deal. Nice, like it, buy it. Give this guy $50. He certainly deserves it. Look at all this stuff. I mean, seriously, I've only scratched the surface, really. You can do things like customize your icons depending on what you want, right? These book terms. You can change the color of things. I mean, it's eminently customizable.
Thought bubble. There's a thought bubble feature where you were just at, yeah.
Yeah, it just changes your icon to thought bubble.
Oh.
You try to remember it on, light bulb.
Ideas.
A lot of this stuff you're never going to use, but it's there if you want,
Whatever works for you, yeah.
I like that. I like the way that, if you're one of those people who puts all of your clothes in the closet and then you can open up your closet and figure out what to wear by things that are hanging. No. or you're the person who scatters their materials all over their apartment, and then, it's the only way you can figure out what's going on. This binder really helps you for that. And if you're not that kind of person and you don't want your binder, just dismiss the binder. Yeah. And he also has a feature by which you can make this full screen. Like if you're one of those people who cannot be distracted, maybe they're focusing on the muse or some other, make this full screen, only words, nothing between you and the text. All this chart junk goes away. Yeah. You can do things like create collections. The search and find features are very powerful. I'm doing a 20-something page comic. If you were writing like a 1,000-word novel, apparently it just works just as good, and it's very fast. So,
can you do things like placeholder text and then be able to replace on bulk? So say you don't know a character's name, or you don't know the name of a city, and you just put in dash 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 or placeholder number 1.
Yeah.
Can you find and replace fairly easily?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Very powerful.
For all of them.
And you could do things like, let me just open this up.
Because in I guess, yeah, sorry. In Word, sometimes it's a little bit annoying because depending on the combination of letters, it could pick something or replace something that is very unintentional because it belongs to a bigger word that has that one word in it.
Yeah, which is stupid beyond belief. I mean, you'd think that Word would be a little bit smarter. I don't use Word a lot. But, not only can you look for text, you can look for these things, right? So say, for example, you had the name of your city. You didn't know what city you were going to set it in. Well, you just highlight it every time or something, and then you could go find every instance of green or, marker. So, yeah, you could. I mean, that's one of the things that people really like, is that you can, search and replace really easily. So, or you might just highlight your text and turn it orange. I'm not sure about this, or this might need to be changed later or some other. You could do a search for just that colored text. That's pretty cool, huh? Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that writers that write, hundreds of pages of books use this in a completely different way. But, the idea that it can be extensible and allow itself to be set up to have these various different options and be useful to people who write in such totally different ways, I think it's pretty cool. Yeah. So good job, Scrivener guy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, recommended. Don't be intimidated by it. It's very friendly. Oh, this is something else that I won't go into that. This is not a tutorial. Yeah. Ta-da!
Oh, I guess he has tutorial videos if you really wanted to get into it.
So if you go to the website, oh, sorry, blank screen here.
Ooh, stars.
Stars. So,
my God, it's full of stars.
We can put this URL. This is Antony Johnson is the guy that wrote the templates. This is the website of the guy that wrote the software, and he's got a whole list of video tutorials. And then, of course, you just, search on YouTube. There are a lot of people who have, kind of explained the way they write. And, look at this. I really need to think about a beach when I write. You could do that. Calm myself down. So, these are very short, and they're nicely produced, so it's easy to go in there and just get a nice
the name generator.
Yeah, they do have a name generator.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, name your character. It's very cool, too. Maybe I should show you that.
Trichonis.
I'm telling you, this is like a bunch of candy to me. I mean, it's just fun, Why don't I want to do this?
And if it's female, it's Trichona. Do you ever see the movie Gentlemen Broncos?
No.
One of the characters is fantasy writer, and he goes to this writing workshop, and one of the panels is about how to come up with creative names. And the guy is played by one of the actors from Flight of the Conchords. So he's like ridiculous, like hokey writing mentor, and he comes up with these ridiculous rules for how to make your character's names. He's like, say I have a troll and I want to make it female, and I name it Trojana.
Trojana.
Inus or anus. Suffixes. It's quite
It's funny because this guy, it's almost like he's thought about that, because he has something like, I was playing around with this the other day. So here's your name generator, yeah? So how many names do you want? You can have
female.
Would you like them to attempt alliteration?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, boy, so it could be like Stan Lee.
Yeah. And then set 4 names. So you can actually have one name and then have it choose the surname or / the forename for you. But this is
obscurity level.
The obscurity level. So you could just like,
oh, that is
these
awesome.
are really common names, right? So I'm just going to generate a bunch of female names.
Sarah Stone.
Yeah. And then I'm going to raise the obscurity level. And then generate.
This is going to be good.
Yeah, it's getting weirder and weirder.
Ebony.
Yeah,
we have alliteration on.
Ebony Inus.
And then we're just going to
Javons.
full out.
Oh, right. I forgot we had alliteration on.
Yeah, so we could turn the alliteration.
Yeah.
Hillary Hindmarsh.
So say, for example, so I actually did use this because I was having trouble, like, naming my French person, right? I didn't end up using any of these names, but I played around with this. So right now everything is toggled on, but you could say, all right, only Brit names or, only Spanish names. And this list is extensible. So if you have a list that you got somewhere else, only Turkish names or some other, you add that sucker right in there. Yeah. And then you could generate names from that. I'm saying, that's like the funnest thing ever. Yeah.
Georgia.
I recommend it. I mean, it's got crap loads of this stuff. I'm not going to go through all this. I mean, each menu is just loaded with stuff that you can mess around with. So I wonder if one of the biggest problems of the software is that the software itself is really kind of fun. So it's just procrastinating writing your novel because you are like, well, I really need to make this icon a certain shade. I've kind of seen that on the forums. It's like, I really need to have my background a certain color. And so that is Scrivner. You should check it out because I think it works pretty well if you have this need for plot.
A little thing called plot.
A little thing called plot. So let's move on and talk about the next stage in this process. Something that, I'm not an expert in, but we have many experts here that are. So, and that's taking this from some sort of text-based script and putting it into pictures. So Myung, why don't you take the screen?
Okay. All right. Well, that was very awesome. I have never used sort of a writing software before. I usually just use Word or a notepad.
I think that Word is not a great choice for writing, and I'll tell you why. Because Word is kind of bloated, and is Microsoft going to send people to my house? And linear, it's very linear. So, you start at the beginning and you go forth to the end. And I know people have come up with different ways to work around this kind of linearity, but it's not why it wasn't designed to accommodate that. So they are all workarounds, I feel. So I have trouble with Word just because I don't use it every day. And, some people know it like the back of their hands, but not me. So I'm constantly fighting with Word. And it writes crappy HTML, so.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, prejudice there. This is another chapter of Simon Sue's.
Yes.
Oh my God.
So
Really
I
tried.
have another beef with, or I guess it's the same beef that I've always had with MangaStudio, in that they only allow you up to 99 pages in your story. So I have to constantly split these things into 2 chapters or into 2 files, which kind of makes it hard to like move pages around, because I have to go from one file to another file, and because we made the template bigger so we can shrink it down and have in finer lines, the files are big, so
Yeah,
it takes
they are
forever
big.
to open it.
In fact, we may need to revisit that because like the huge ones tangent, shut up. Okay. Making templates for MangaStudio, we should talk about that at some point. So I will just say that if we don't get a little bit of MangaStudio bashing in for every single podcast, then we failed. So nice bash. Yeah. All you people, keep in mind when you want to get your 300-page comic novel, you can't do it all in one file.
Right. And
also, when you say that you have
I'm
this
sure
problem,
I'm not
it makes
alone.
me want to kill you.
I'm not alone in this. So anyway, as you were mentioning, this would be if you were a comic writer, or I guess prose writers can do this as well if they want some more visual aid. But generally, you go from your script, and it doesn't. Well, I normally don't have a completely finished, polished script. It's always changing. But I try to get it to the point where I have that dialogue that you were talking about, where it's utilitarian. It moves the plot along. It has the points that I want, and there's some color, so I can use that to dictate what kind of character direction I'm going to have in the page. But what I'd like to do, because I don't necessarily split everything up by panel, or even like what text is going to go on what page or what action is going to go on what page, I end up going through all of the pages and laying out roughly what the text I think should be on that page. And then if there's an action or there's a fight scene, I end up just kind of drawing little tiny thumbnails in a notebook, figuring out like what action needs how many pages, and then I just have like 9 blank pages that I know I'm going to fill in with action later.
Yeah, but how do you know that? How do you know it's going to just experience?
Because a little bit of experience and a little bit of that thumbnail stuff. So I just have like a little notebook where I sketch in like somebody punching somebody or a monster destroying something, and then I kind of get a feel that that's going to handle the sequence correctly, and people can follow the action. I would need 2 pages to make sure continuity and logistically it was working and whatever.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think a lot of people don't choreograph their fight scenes, and when they draw the comic, you can tell. You could tell that they have like a couple of blank pages and they're like, put a fight here. I think Myung's action scenes are really quite good. They're well choreographed, like you'd see in a movie. So,
But
okay.
I always end up adding pages.
I know. So this is the problem when you go from a script to a thumbnail. You're looking at your script, it's all tidy and nice, and then you're trying to do these. It's not your first thumbnail, it may be your second thumbnail or some other, and you're like, that is not all gonna fit. No, not another page. Yeah.
hmm
And then you have to start a new file because you're reaching that 99 cap.
Oh dear.
Well, anyway, so I end up, before I do any of the sketching or any panel making, I end up just laying down the text on all of the pages so I get a rough idea of how many pages I have total.
Mm.
And I always end up moving the text around anyway from page to page, but it gives me an idea of when I start thumbnailing, like what the action or what the camera angle is going to be, or at least I have enough information from the dialogue to go look up like a reference shot or like reference a movie or a television show or something.
Mm.
So
Do you do the dialogue bubbles and everything, or do you just putting in just like really rough text? Can you zoom in just a little bit, or?
yeah, I'm gonna open a page.
No, I just wanted to see the vista like a little bit bigger, like
Uh,
the 91 page vista.
oh no, sadly.
Well,
Alright.
yeah, we can see the view over there.
Well,
Okay.
so that I get everything in, I'll zoom in to see the
So
other pages.
many pages.
So I do have the bubbles there and the text, just so that I can, easily move them around and figure out how big the panels need to be in order to get the text not crowded within the panel and then have enough action without the bubble being placed on top of a key element like a head or or
So
like the
let me
action
let me
itself.
ask you, how did you get to this point? I mean, did you just wrote out a script in Word? So you just
Um,
every time you just do a chapter at a time, or do you write like a master outline for the whole book, or?
I kind of do what you were doing in Scribner, just more painstaking because Word doesn't have those writing tools.
Mm.
So I write out a complete script for the entire series, and then I break it apart by chapter, by story arc. So each story arc is roughly about 5 to 7 pages, and just from doing all of these chapters, 5 to 7 pages of like that Word doc usually equates to about like 70 or 80 pages of thumbnail.
Oh.
So, well, like breaking it up into chapter, I can figure out roughly like how long the whole chapter, the whole arc is going to be, and how long the whole story is going to be.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, so after I put down the text, then I have to decide kind of the same the same questions that you were asking. For instance, what panel is going to be the most important panel?
Yeah.
And then how many panels should I put on a page in order to give the right sense of pacing?
Mm.
Um, and so I always find the hardest thing is the opening shots or the opening panels whenever you're transitioning to a new scene.
Yeah. Sorry, was that
And
empathic? It's because because
yeah,
you know
yeah.
what? Because they take a lot of space, yeah? And you're like, you don't want to add another page, and yet you need that establishing shot in there because you can't tell what the hell, if you get a cut scene or some other, right? So it's like, and they're almost always excruciatingly detailed backgrounds or, architecture or something that's really time consuming to draw. So yeah,
hmm
I hate them so
Right.
much.
And then, I always struggle with, well, do I bleed the action into the next page from the previous page
Mm,
so there's more of a seamless transition?
yeah.
Or do I cut the action and go to the next
Yeah,
page
like a
right
jump
away?
cut or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And then if I start a whole new scene on a whole new page, do I have, smaller panels to sort of lead or clue you in to what's going to be the bigger panel. So have, little shots of like micro shots of a hand or a window or something, and then have the big reveal? Or do I just go into the big reveal and sort of make you like get lost in the expanse of the scene? So it really, for me, kind of boils down to what kind of mood I want the reader to be in.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I do want like a smash cut, and so I'll have kind of a very slow paced set of pages right before, and then I'll jump to like a giant spread or something. But for this particular 2 pages, like I wanted more of a softer transition. So I ended up, this is supposed to be, and my thumbnails are fairly rough, so you have to use your imagination in some areas. But I wanted
some magic happens.
The magic happens here.
Make that bigger so we can see it a little bit.
Okay.
Just make the face bigger.
So I wanted this
magic.
to be a
Right.
sky. So like, magic. So it's supposed to be constellations and a night sky, and I wanted it transition into another type of sky, which would have a plane in it. So I was going to use these small little panels, and this is something that manga people a lot will do, where they have these tiny little panels just to slow down the reader's eye.
Yeah. Show the passage of time.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Classic Scott in the Cloud stuff, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's also like I done a lot of storyboards, so you kind of use when you want, your director or your art director to stop and think, or to not run through your panels, you do a lot of these buffer panels where it's just black, or it's like slowly fading to black or something. Or white.
Cinematographic sort of storytelling that, I guess manga is kind of known for, right?
Yeah,
Give yourself space.
Which I really like about that format, that type, the genre.
Yeah.
So anyway, I wanted it to be a little bit softer, so I included part of the transition on the bottom of this page, and then cut to the interior of the plane. So, all of my thumbnail panels are just sort of reminders for myself, so they're not set in stone. And I just know that for this panel, I want a plane in there, and that may not be the final shot of the plane, but the idea is
it's just like exterior plane, right?
Yeah. So I may want more of the plane. I may want the plane not to be touching any side of the panel, so I had this storyboard instructor who once told me, like, whenever you have something flying, if you want to give the illusion of it actually in the air or it's flying, you have to have at least one panel where the object doesn't touch any of the sides.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Otherwise, you're always grounding it.
That is interesting. Huh. This is why I make it complicated comics.
Yeah. All these thought processes that you have to combine into one product.
Yeah.
So anyway, I may change that panel as I start refining my thumbnail.
So here,
but anyway,
if you scroll up just a little bit, we can see the top of this panel. I'm sure.
Oh, and I like to include photo references, so similar to what you were doing with your references, to give you ideas and inspiration for your story.
That's very important. So the reason why the interior of the plane is so big, this panel is the big panel, you got a lot of space up there in the air. Is there a lot of dialogue there? Or are you just trying to get across the idea that it's a, plane, it's quiet, it's dark there, or,
Right. Well, that was, so the lighting isn't showing in this stage, but that was sort of the idea, where it'd be a very dark scene, and then there would be just this light from his laptop. And so everything else would be quiet, and everybody's sort of relaxed and calm and easing into the end part of this flight. And then this character, my main character, Simon, is the only one who's working tirelessly through the entire flight on his laptop, trying to figure out the mystery of the story.
Yeah. So, there has to be a reason why this panel is large. I knew that just from reading your comics, but because you've given this panel this is the money shot, quote unquote, but the space to kind of establish this atmosphere, that Simon is alone and everybody else is asleep, and you have all this space, and I don't know, I like it, yeah. So it establishes the tone for the next chapter. Yeah.
Right. And a lot of times that thinking doesn't even come into play until I go through the thumbnails, 3 times, and then I suddenly realize that like I want it to feel more larger, and get the feeling that this is of everyone on the plane, he's the only one awake. So I wanted a larger capacity and bigger volume, and I wanted to shift him over more towards the right so that your eye would go from left and then scan right and then see the light. But that didn't even dawn on me until, so I like to, whenever I finish a first pass at thumbs, I'll always combine it into a PDF, and then I'll send it to my phone or my Kindle, and then I'll read it while I'm like going to bed or while I'm on break from work. Because for some reason, for me, I need to get into the mindset I'm reading a book, and I can't really see the pacing issues unless I'm in that mindset.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think especially with comics, I don't know about you guys, but I tend to focus on one page as a finished artwork, right? Because there's so much effort that goes into creating this page, particularly if it has a complicated background or some other. And then you forget it's just one page that the reader is experiencing, and they're already moved on to the next page. So.
Right. And then you have, if you're doing this as a webcomic, then there's also that gap between your last update and your next update. So it adds this kind of artificial pacing that readers can get, which will throw them off when they if you ever print out your material and you have somebody look at it as a giant volume, then they're flipping through it really fast, and then what you thought was good timing and good pacing is not, because you don't have that schedule set in.
Yeah.
For like, don't look at this page until tomorrow.
Right. That's interesting. The whole pacing idea, the way that goes. That could be something we could talk about, for a whole podcast. Pacing. But I think it has to do with being able to organize these materials in one place so you can experience them in this way, though,
Right. So let me...
And then also, we could talk about photo refs, too. I think that, a lot of artists don't use as many photo refs as they should, obviously. One of the things I like about, Simon Sue's is that it really takes a lot of effort to expose you to the environment that these people live in. Like, it's a supernatural sort of procedural. There's a lot of supernatural elements. Some of the action takes place in these, shadowy realms and stuff like that. But when they're there in reality, they actually look like they're moving through this environment. Yeah. So, this looks like some people on a plane. So instead of having, manga is criticized by this frequently, that you have some guy's head in a big white panel. And, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to really, immerse your readers in this experience, God, it's important to give them environments, 3D environments to move around in. And for that, you need references.
Well, also
put the work in,
Yeah. Well, the story that my particular story, what I was trying to tell, is more kind of like this horror mystery, and very specific to the genre is the setting for horror. So you really need to have like a sense of environment, a sense of like ambient mood, and your backgrounds. And I think there's this debate going on between like what you should call it, because it's not, backgrounds are completely different than environments. And I think people should start thinking of things as a character, like their background is a character, and you have to move around in it. You can interact with it to make the character more interesting, their movement more interesting, where a background is just something you throw in to just fill negative space.
Yeah.
But a 3D environment...
You should use both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you should be thinking about the environment all the time, I feel.
I agree. And grounding your characters in this environment seems really enriches the story to me.
I like. And I don't know, I think photo references are they're not some people think they're cheating, but I think that you don't know all this information at birth, so you need to do your research.
Yeah, no, you need a reference. I mean, this is one of the reasons why in many circles the art is so poor. It's like, look, if you don't, if you don't have a lot of muscles on your arm and you want to go draw a guy with a muscular arm, you need to go find a picture of an arm. Duh. I don't even know what the debate is. It's like, yeah, sure, learn how to draw it, right? I mean, that's the only way you're going to do it.
So in the thumbnail stage, I usually end up taking photos that I've taken, and I will kind of composite something together to make it fit my story or the particular mood that I want. And then I'll throw it in, and when it comes time to penciling, I'll end up dimming the layer down and then actually going in and penciling the larger, more main portion of the architecture.
Yeah, 'cause you don't need all that detail. You have a lot.
Yeah. But for like little things like bushes or if there's tiny intricate work in the brick, I may put a filter on and then just use it sort of as texture and leave that into my drawing. So there's a composite of hand-drawn stuff and photo stuff.
Yeah.
But like finding the balance it can be hard.
You have to find the balance because, I mean, it has to flow naturally. I mean, the point here is to tell a story and to immerse your reader in the story. And it's your job to make that as seamless a transition as you can. They don't care about the details of how you made this thing. It's just ridiculous. It's like just, give them an environment or give them a story that they can sink into and don't constantly throw roadblocks up in their way to throw them out of it, So, yeah.
So another thing about this particular chapter, and I kind of had to start planning this in the writing portion, but I wanted it to be kind of as if the character was writing a journal. So he was going through these sort of vignettes or montages of different parts of this particular institute. And it was very tempting for each scene or each new experience to write this really long, elaborate dialogue and interaction with all the different, cast members or secondary characters. But then I realized it wasn't, it was just me trying to, have fun with the characters, which is good in some points, but it wasn't moving the action along, and I was losing track of the main purpose of the story, and I wanted to do some more editing and like pace it a little faster because it was a little bit boring.
I was just kind of staring at this. I kind of recognize this fountain. Was this when we were in?
So it's a composite.
Oh, okay. I was about to say that looks like the Rathaus in.
So it's part like the museum. It's the Royal Museum in Vienna,
oh, of course.
And then the top part is from Italy.
Oh, okay, right, yeah, I remember. All right, I remember seeing this crazy ass statue in Vienna.
Yeah, and then some of the back is like the Royal Palace.
Hey, make it fit. Okay, show us the different page.
All right. So then, so what I was mentioning before, having these different experiences and doing these sort of little vignettes. So I needed to show each panel having like a different action, skipping around a lot. So I wasn't doing a lot of sequential work. It was more just showing different as if the character was like looking this way and then look that way and look this way. So kind of this frenetic feel. So I didn't have this originally, so I had written out this long dialogue and interaction. So I ended up cutting all of that and making it seem like the character was writing in a journal. So I did this set of pages which are just going from day to day activities.
The montage, yes.
The montage.
The montage. like, I can't figure out how to get all this information on screen. I know, training montage.
Yes, with music.
Kung Fu Panda.
The final countdown. There we
the final
go.
countdown, yeah. Tacto, hit
Full
it.
circle.
But I still want
Here.
pages in there so that there'd be something slowing down the action, or it would provide contrast between the quicker paced scenes. So, here's another
character. The lady with the bun. Who is she?
She's kind of like his personal handler,
Oh, okay.
who
That's
is
cool.
making sure he stays in the right, correct areas and keeps away from the restricted areas.
It's very smug.
Well,
we've kind of only touched the surface of this. I think we're at an hour, though, are we?
Yes,
Feel
for an
like
hour.
we could go on and on. Yeah, I mean, well,
I was going to talk about like an action sequence.
You should have cut me off sooner because I just went on and on about Scrivner, and we could have gotten to the pretty pictures.
No, Scrivner was important.
Do you want to do we want to test our audience's, like, well, who are those guys anyway? Like, it's one of my coworkers.
Do we even have an audience?
One. We have one subscriber, so Junzi, should we talk about the fight scene, or should we? Let's talk about the fight scene.
It's a video. They can skip ahead if they need to.
He's not even listening.
We could go for 10 more minutes. I feel like we didn't get a chance to really talk to Tacto and Dan today, but I mean, Myung's thumbnail chapters are so overwhelming. No, it's just so much material and so much to talk about there. But yeah, show us the pacing of the fight scene. I'd like to, because I actually, sadly for D, I have a fight scene that I'm actually going to have to choreograph in my tiny little anthology story. And I would love some insight into how to go about it.
All right. So I am absolutely not a master expert of fight choreography, but
well, let's back that up.
Like,
you have actually taken martial arts, yeah? So you have a degree in what?
Taekwondo.
Yeah, Taekwondo. Yeah, you have a belt in Taekwondo, right? So I mean, you actually
that's
fighting.
not.
Yeah, but I mean, to me, that's important. If you've actually fought somebody before, that informs your fight scenes, right? We've all seen manga that has fight scenes in it. It's like these two pretty boys that look kind of like slapping at each other or something. I don't even. It's not a fight,
So, my biggest concern with fight sequences are the direction of the action, and then sort of the focal point, or the what do you call it? The focal length, or the type of camera that you're using to show the action. So is it like closed in, or is it flattening the perspective? How much of the environment do you want to show to give a sense of grounding and stuff like that? So those are all things that I'm still kind of tackling and figuring out as I do these panels. But I did a lot of revisions on this one because I ended up not having enough pages. And so this transition in particular, I wasn't sure about. Actually, the one right before that, sorry.
Oh, here's Harvey again. I'm always glad to see Harvey. Yeah. Cockney bastard.
So I guess I should just explain what's going on.
Yeah, let's have a cheer for Harvey. Join me, Harvey. Yeah.
So this creature is kind of like a virus come to life, and it's like running around on the tops of the roof of this promenade type thing, and it's supposed to be looking over its shoulder, and it's being threatened by the two characters here, Simon and Harvey, because they're running with this laptop, which can be used to shut it down. So I wanted.
It's a virus. I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So then the next page, let's see where it is. I had them running in the panel down below here, And to keep it consistent with the other page, the other panel on the other page, I could have had them going off to screen right, but then it would, lead. I didn't want the eye to be let off the page like that.
Well, let's talk about camera one whole SketchJam. Okay, keep going. I just wrote that down. Camera.
Sorry. So I wanted kind of your eye to be drawn to where they were running. So I ended up flipping the panel so that it would be drawn to this point here, and that's kind of also where this creature is looking. So it's doing this crossfire. And then in the next page, so because it was a new page and it's kind of like a cut, I thought it was okay if he was running screen right, even though in the previous page he was like kind of running a little bit to the screen left, but still, you can still kind of make out because it hasn't quite broken the 180 rule. And I wanted him to be running right so that he could be pulled to the left, so you get that sense of force. And then I wanted that to be the main panel because...
Oh, he's being pulled up here, yeah?
Yeah. So these sort of like tendril-y metal, I don't quite know what they are yet, but they're going to yank him up to the left. And so I wanted that feeling of force, and I figured it would be contrasted well if he was moving in the opposite direction and then move to the, like, forcibly and violently move to the complete different direction.
Speed lines.
So then there was another cut, and I wanted this to be a little bit sequential so it was easy to follow what was happening. So I wanted Harvey to be coming kind of like the camera was rotating around him. So you would start out facing him, and then it would rotate around.
Oh, I see. Kind of bullet time, yeah. So he's like gathering up his chi there, right? Kamehameha.
And then I wanted the action to. So I wanted this anticipation.
The flaming Harvey fist of death.
Yeah, his arm was originally out here, and so like. I didn't think that, well, one, it was blocking the creature, and two, I wanted like more of a pullback and anticipation so that when it came across, like you got the full effect of
with the force perspective, right? So you see the KO'd virus.
And then I wanted to pull out a little bit so you could see
Simon's ass.
Great.
Tacto, can I get a hell yeah for Simon's ass?
Yay. Well, anyways, I wanted this up angle so that
you're on your own.
A clear view of what was going on.
Yeah.
And then this one I may like end up making bigger or shrinking the action a little bit in the panel so you can see more of the where he's running to. So it's back to that, what'd you call it? Like hall of some kind. And then I wanted to make it seem as if there was action still happening in the background. So I wanted to include a shot where he was off to the offset on the lower portion of the screen, and then having all of this like explosion action happening behind these columns.
Seeing the whole environment there.
So I thought
grounding him in an environment,
Yeah. And I thought it was a nice contrast to have him like focused on the computer and ignoring all of the crap that's happening in the background.
Yeah, it's a character moment, right? I like that. Showing your character through, action rather than just telling us about them.
Yeah, and I think...
How long is this fight scene?
Let me see. Go to story mode.
Yeah, just kind of zoom across there and, well, let it refresh. It's a little pixelated because there are so many pages. Show us the extent of the fight scene before we wrap up.
It was about 20 little bit more than 20 pages.
Yeah, they're beautifully choreographed, and I really like the way that they flow. So, again, I think you can kind of see a comic, like not everybody is, does various aspects, like somebody not really good at fight scenes or some other. But I think you do your characters a disservice when you just say, insert fight scene, and then you have a couple of fists swinging. And, I mean, the non-dialogue scenes really can be as rich as things where people are talking, right? I mean, you often understand a character through showing rather than telling.
Yeah. I really like when you see a comic that has pages of no dialogue, and then you just have to make sure your characters have strong sense of direction and posing.
Yeah. Nice. So the fight ends up on page 21.
Yeah.
And giving these things the space to breathe and, occupy some time, not just a couple of panels. They are.
And these, but they're actually, fairly rough, so they're quick to bang out. And if you want to make changes, you're not investing a lot, so you don't feel like you're sacrificing a great deal.
I think that one of the things that people find difficult about fight scenes is that you are thinking about camera angles. You are thinking about a lot of forced perspective, yeah, because this gives you urgency. So, if you're used to just drawing, people standing or people sitting or people walking, drawing these bodies in motion can be quite difficult, can be quite challenging. I think it helps if you have some sort of animation background or some other, so you're...
Yeah. So if you do a lot of life drawing, it helps as well. So this is kind of my sense of forced perspective.
Yeah.
So I wanted the creature to be like sort of this fish in a barrel, and then the character coming from above, death from above.
I have heard too, if you want, you can do this. Take a movie, and I've tried this. I think it works great. You take a movie or a TV show or some other, and turn off the sound because it's distracting, and then just slow frame yourself through a fight sequence and see where the cuts are, see where the camera angles are. Find out, inform your brain what the body looks like when it's in motion. Because I mean, looking at this figure right here. It's quite distorted, so you wouldn't be able to just, I mean, obviously you've done this a lot, okay? But I mean, if you were just, thinking about a fight scene, maybe you would need a reference for that. You can just draw it out of your head. The idea that his leg goes off screen and gets so much bigger, and you really have to see that to be able to convince your brain that that's how it works, It's not intuitive.
What I like to do whenever, I'm not quite sure of how I'm going to set up the rest of the characters in relationship to each other, I'll draw a really quick few perspective lines, kind of like a makeshift grid. So I'll be like, well, I know one perspective line is going to be like this. So it also helps, and this is why you do yourself a disservice when you don't include any environments. It helps to have like a frame of reference for the action.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not in here because I was just going through this really fast, but I would definitely want to include sort of a little bit of pavement or stonework or something, or even the shadow helps.
Yeah.
Including a shadow.
Right. Because you get the idea of, the space between these two characters, and when they're just floating in the white void, you don't get anything. You get nothing, so...
Right. I took a character design class once, and one of the instructors was talking about ways that you can show scale. And one of the best ways to show scale is to add these, little details, design work into your stuff.
It's the classic tiled floor, right?
Yeah. So showing, you whenever you want to show scale in a photo, you put in a human hand or you put in a dollar bill or something. So it's kind of the same deal. Like you want to have a panel where you show the characters on these pavement tiles so you can see how big the tile is. And then you can use it in another panel as a frame of reference to show just how big the creature is or how far away the camera is.
It's like a little visual clue too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing too when you're moving the character, when you're rotating the character around in the environment, you want to include parts of the environment because that's a good frame of reference. So the audience knows where the camera is moving, and then where if the characters have moved in the screen, which can also be disorientating, where they are in reference to their environment as well.
Yeah. Well, a lot to think about. I mean, anything you can do to immerse the reader more closely into this action and into the story is worth doing. Boy, just having those little lines there is really amazing. Click on and off of those again. It just completely changes. It's like floating in the void. Oh, okay, that black thing, that's groovy looking thing on the ground is on the ground. Okay, and he's above it. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, guys, learn how to draw backgrounds.
And, it's just it's a bunch of little strokes. It's not anything super detailed or time-consuming. I
think this is something that beginners struggle with, and certainly I struggle with too, because I don't. My perspective is shaky at best, and I'd really have to, wrap my brain about how these works, and I don't think I could draw a fight scene like this, not at my current level. So it'll be interesting to see how I manage my own problems with this. It won't look like that. Maybe I can pass on a bit of advice. It's like, hire Myung to thumbnail out your fight scene for you.
or
yeah,
what you mentioned before.
To do a 3-page fight scene for me.
Or what you mentioned before, you could just use some movie references and then.
I mean, I think it comes down to experience at the end, because, the amount of time you've spent, putting these images into your databank, into your brain, informs your vision. And if you spend time paying attention to these things, like if you're just a beginner, you see one fight scene, you're very influenced by that fight scene. You may be tempted to copy the fight scene or use some of the same moves or some other, which is fine. Do whatever you want. But if you've seen like 50 of these fight scenes, then it starts sort of, marinating in your brain, and you start to think about the best way to tell your story, right? To use these tools to, this kind of experience that you have to choreograph your own stuff. It's a process that we all have to go through. There's no shortcuts on it. It just really is.
And don't limit yourself to one medium. Like, a lot of people will only read comics, or only look at one particular comic artist.
Yeah. And
that also is very limiting.
Don't do that. I would say, obviously you can't run across, depending on where you live, you're not going to run across people fighting, probably. You can go to the dojo, take pictures. But, put up a movie or something and just watch, in slow-mo again, sound turn off, and just see these movements.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
And there's tons of references on the internet too, like movie references or video references of people doing stunts or parkour.
Oh yeah.
Gymnastics.
Yeah.
There's tons. There's endless amounts of people who like to shoot themselves doing stupid parkour moves that they end up failing at.
But you, being a comic book artist, can make them succeed. Okay, well, that's, just a very brief overview of the thumbnailing process, thumbnailing/storyboarding. I mean, there are many aspects of this that we can go into more depth about, and I'm sure we will, because we have just this endless source of thumbnailing going on with Myung. He's just knock out a chapter in a couple weeks.
And let me just interject. When Myung says it, it's really quick to bang this out, and, well,
it's not.
Quick.
Yeah.
Really fine.
Tacto and I are kind of on the same level, and our eyes are rolling. If there was actually an audio associated with eye rolling, you would have been hearing it through all this whole.
We have to have a special sound for the eye rolling.
Dan, we need a sound effect for the eye rolling. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll figure that out after I figure out the music for this podcast of ours.
Yeah. You're just like our audio guy. We need sounds. But I think in the end, when you look at all this stuff, in the end, you can tell that some thought has gone on to this. I mean, you can tell when this work has been done. So every comic is a series of compromises and what you have time to show and what you want to do. But I mean, it's worth spending a little bit of your time thinking about this stuff. It really does make a difference, depending on what you're trying to do. I mean, you can't just have your characters sit there and talk to one another. with their heads about the same size.
Oh, I
What of
see
you?
that so much.
I
Like, just
do it. I do
floating
it.
heads.
Yeah.
Well, at least you have an environment,
There's
and it's
nothing
not
wrong with that.
every single panel.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. But I can tell you, if you continue to make comics, at some point you're going to want more. So just go ahead and do the work to get you there. So yeah, let's wrap that up. So today we've been talking about story. We went over Scrivner, which is a way to get your script, your ideas down, your resources organized, your ideas flowing, idea generation kind of tool. Allows you to try, just get the stuff down where you can see it, manipulate it, and work on it. I just like rolling up your sleeves and just getting in there. And then the next stage of the process, which is thumbnailing, which Myung does in MangaStudio. Of course, you can do it anywhere. It's not so much the software as the technique. Though I like the way that MangaStudio lets you organize the little page views over there, so you can get some kind of overview. Rather than opening up like a million pages in Photoshop or something. How do you get?
Yeah. Or you have to open up Bridge.
Oh yeah, Bridge, right. You can't open up a million pages. Dan, was that a little comment on Bridge?
I hate Bridge. Partly because I always inevitably accidentally open it I'm trying to do something else.
Yeah.
And it just pops up. It's like, God damn it.
Yeah.
It's because there's always underneath the open, there's always the open in Bridge option.
Yeah.
Bridge really wants to help you. I just feel like, Adobe really wants you to use Bridge. So it's making it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, this kind of thing for pacing, for flow, being able to see, an overview of your work and how it's flowing from page to page. It's very good, very important. So next time we'll have a 30-page thumbnail script from Tacto. Yeah? Done. We could use that sound effect for eye rolling.
Yeah, eye rolling, yeah.
And we could talk about, Dan's stuff as well, because Dan is not doing a long form comic. It is a long form comic, but it's not a page-based comic. It's a strip-based web comic. So completely different.
Yeah, completely different set of rules for when you're doing newspaper strip style stuff.
Yeah. So Dan comes from the tradition of a more, I guess you can't call it a newspaper strip anymore because do they have those anymore? It's more like a 4-panel kind of 4-coma kind of situation where it's
right.
a humor strip or, something. And it has completely different rules. So I think we should go over that at one point. This sort of long form storytelling is kind of a different beast.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, well, I hope you've enjoyed the discussion today, even though it wasn't much of a discussion. It was mostly us just showing stuff. Have a chance to check out the software if you're so inclined. And I hope you'll be able to join us next time when we talk about something else that has to do with creating comics, writing comics, drawing comics on the BentoComics SketchJam. So we'll see you next week.